Imagine you spend like 4 years at a really prestigious university studying the exact physics of a bicycle,
Okay, I can picture that.
right? So you're sitting in these massive lecture halls and you're just memorizing the precise torque required for the pedals.
Calculating gyroscopic effects of the wheels, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know all the math. You even spend your entire final semester writing this brilliant, 50-page thesis on the aerodynamics of the handlebars.
Wow. Very academic.
Highly academic. And then graduation day finally comes. You show up for a job interview to be a city bike messenger. You're feeling super confident, right?
Naturally, you know everything about bikes.
Yeah. But the hiring manager doesn't ask to see your thesis. They don't care about the math. They just point to this beat-up bicycle in the corner, look out the window at heavy, chaotic city traffic, and basically say, okay, show me you can ride it.
Which is the ultimate moment of panic for our theoretical physicist here, because they realize they've literally never balanced on two wheels in their entire life.
It is a terrifying realization.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is the core tension we are unpacking for you today on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's an incredibly relevant analogy for what's happening right now.
It really is. There is this alarming, rapidly widening gap between what universities are teaching about artificial intelligence and what employers actually demand when you sit down in that interview chair.
Right. I mean, employers are actively looking for writers who can navigate heavy traffic, but our higher education systems are, well, they're basically still graduating theoretical physicists.
Which brings us to our sources for today. We are looking at a really detailed press release from a company called EON AI Ventures.
Yes. And they are announcing the launch of something they call the AI Founder Program.
And the mission for our deep dive today is to really unpack this. EON is making a very bold claim that they have the architectural blueprint to completely fix this exact AI credential gap.
And, you know, the stakes for this gap are incredibly high. The source material has this one data point that really jumps out right away.
Oh, the salary premium.
Exactly. It states that verified AI operators are currently commanding roughly 40% above baseline salaries in comparable roles.
I mean, a 40% premium just for proving you can actually operate the machinery. That is wild.
It's massive. But that premium exists because of a very specific friction in the modern job market.
Right, which we talked about with the bicycle analogy.
Yeah. Higher education is basically still doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is teaching foundational theory. Students are learning the history of AI, the mathematical principles behind large language models.
The ethical implications of machine learning, all of that.
Right. All the physics of the bicycle. But corporate hiring, it has completely moved away from theoretical exams.
They want hands-on proof.
Exactly. A hiring manager today doesn't want you to, define what a neural network is. They want you to sit at a laptop, deploy an autonomous AI agent, automate a broken workflow, and literally generate a working product right there in the room.
Which basically means a graduate from a highly accredited top-tier university might lose an entry-level position to a candidate who doesn't even have a college degree.
Yep. Simply because that non-traditional candidate can actually point to a live, automated workflow they designed.
So the big question for you, the listener, is how do you actually turn theorists into operators at scale? And EON claims to have cracked this using 3 integrated pillars.
Right. And to really understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at the foundation of how they teach, and more importantly, how they prove these skills.
Which leads us straight into their first pillar.
Yeah, the first pillar is termed AI fluency. And the structure here is essentially the foundation of proof.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Well, the curriculum relies on 100 applied courses, which I know sounds like a massive number.
It sounds overwhelming, honestly.
It does, but they compartmentalize them into 5 progressive levels.
And I want to look closely at these levels because it's definitely not your standard college syllabus.
Not at all.
So level 1 is AI foundations, which sounds normal, like standard intro material, but then it aggressively shifts gears.
Yeah, level 2 is called AI thought partner.
Right, which implies moving way beyond just, treating an AI like a better search engine. You're learning how to effectively prompt and maintain context windows.
Exactly. And then level 3 is AI agents and workflow automation. Level 4 is AI leadership and deployment.
And the very top tier, level 5, is AI entrepreneurship.
So the whole progression is clearly designed to move the student from just a passive consumer of AI tools
To an active architect of autonomous systems.
Precisely. But, the curriculum itself isn't really the disruptive element here.
No. Then what is?
The real mechanism we need to look at is the verification engine running underneath all those courses. because the whole problem we're discussing is the inability to prove capability.
Right. The show me you can ride the bike moment.
Exactly. And EON attempts to solve this by ending each of these courses with what they call an EAFI checkpoint.
An EAFI checkpoint.
Yeah. It stands for EON AI Fluency Index.
Okay, I have to put the brakes on for a second here.
Hmm.
Because whenever I hear phrases like index or checkpoint when we're talking about online courses, I immediately think of those digital certificates of completion.
Oh, sure. The ones all over LinkedIn.
Yes, we've all seen them cluttering up our feeds. You basically let a 3-hour video play in a browser tab while you fold your laundry, you click a multiple choice button at the end, and the platform spits out a shiny digital certificate.
Right. A participation trophy.
Exactly. From a hiring manager's perspective, why would they view an EAFI as anything more than another one of those?
It's totally the natural skepticism to have, but the source material directly addresses this distinction. A standard certificate is basically just a receipt of attendance. It just proves you logged in on a certain date.
Right.
The EAFI, by contrast, is engineered to capture very granular, assessed evidence of operational work.
Okay, but explain the mechanics there. How does an automated test actually capture granular operational work?
Well, it's not a multiple choice test. To pass an EAFI checkpoint, especially at the higher levels like 4 and 5, the student actually has to execute tasks within a live environment.
Wait, like coding tasks?
Yeah, the system is actively recording the API calls they made, the logic of the workflows they automated, and the actual error logs they had to resolve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it captures the entire architecture of their solution, and then all that data is compiled into an auditable credential that lives on a public verification URL.
Okay, so it's much more like a digital x-ray of your actual technical process
Yeah.
rather than just a generic pass or fail grade.
Precisely. And for institutions that require, ultimate security, EON actually offers optional blockchain anchoring for these credentials.
Let's unpack that blockchain element for a second, because that term gets thrown around a lot as just a tech buzzword.
It really does.
Why is a blockchain actually necessary for a university course credential?
Think about a traditional university setting. If an employer wants to verify a degree, what do?
They have to call the university registrar, request an official transcript, and wait weeks for manual confirmation.
Exactly. It's incredibly slow. But by anchoring the EAFI to a blockchain, EON is creating a decentralized, immutable ledger of that student's actual work.
Meaning the credential is mathematically tamper-proof.
Yes. If a hiring manager clicks that public URL, the blockchain verification instantly proves that this specific student completed those exact technical workflows on that specific date.
Without needing a university administrator to sign off on it.
Right. It creates a completely processless audit trail of capability.
Okay, I get it. If I'm an employer, seeing verified API calls and workflow architecture is a massive step up from a traditional resume.
Definitely.
But proving you can pass a highly technical assessment is still just step one. Because out in the real world, employers don't just buy skills, right? They buy solutions.
That's true.
They want to see what you can actually build from scratch when the guardrails are completely taken away.
Yeah.
So how does a student convert this auditable skill index into a tangible portfolio?
Well, that transition from taking tests to building solutions is what EON calls the venture builder. And this is the second pillar of the program.
The show don't tell phase.
Exactly. This is the phase where the theoretical fully gives way to the operational.
And from the source text, the venture builder seems entirely designed to completely replace the traditional academic capstone project.
It really does.
I mean, in a conventional degree, your final semester is usually spent writing this massive theoretical thesis. Maybe your professor reads it, maybe a TA skims it, and then it just sits on a hard drive for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, gathering digital dust. But the venture builder mandates that instead of writing a paper about a problem, the student actually has to build a working, software-based AI product to solve it.
And the mechanics of how they facilitate this build process are super interesting. They don't just tell the student, hey, go code an app in a vacuum.
Right. The platform actively guides them through this highly accelerated entrepreneurial loop, and it actually starts with market analysis. The student infits their geographic location, and the venture builder's AI system scans real, local market signals to surface genuine, unmet business needs in that specific area.
Wait, how exactly does an AI system parse local market signals to find business ideas?
Yeah.
What kind of data is it even looking at?
Well, the press release doesn't publish their exact proprietary algorithms, obviously.
Sure.
But typically, systems like this are scraping public data registries, local B2B software procurement requests, commercial real estate trends, maybe regional search volumes.
Looking for inefficiencies.
Exactly. It might notice a massive spike in a specific region for, say, legal transcription services that local firms just can't handle, or maybe a supply chain routing issue that's unique to a certain port city.
Okay, so the AI basically acts as an initial market researcher.
Yes.
But doesn't that sort of defeat the purpose of entrepreneurship? I mean, if the AI is just handing the student a business idea, are they really learning how to be a founder?
That's a fair question, but the system doesn't hand them a finished business. It just generates a structured product specification based on the data. It identifies the gap.
Ah, okay, the student still has to execute the build.
Right. And to do that, they utilize some incredibly advanced AI developer tools. The source material specifically highlights the integration of Claude Code and Claude Cowork into EON's proprietary methodology.
Which they call vibe flow, right?
Yes, Vibeflow.
Which is an interesting name for a development methodology. But
Yeah.
let's break down those tools. Claude Code is essentially an agentic AI coding assistant.
Right.
It doesn't just autocomplete text. It can navigate an entire code base, write scripts, and debug errors autonomously based on the student's instructions.
And then Vibeflow acts as the overall project management architecture.
Now, currently, the text notes that VibeFlow involves a layer of human coaching alongside the AI tools to keep the student on track.
Yes, but there is a very aggressive timeline mentioned in the release. By the end of April 2026, EON is transitioning this Vibeflow methodology into fully automated guided instruction.
That is just a staggering concept to me. An AI system autonomously guiding a human student through the multi-week process of building a brand new AI product.
It's wild. It is essentially automating the role of the technical co-founder and the project manager.
But let's look at the end result of this automated build process because, even if you build a functional app with Claude Code, a prototype is still just a prototype.
Sure.
If you just demo it in a classroom, it's still essentially a simulation of business.
And this is exactly where EON introduces what they call the marketplace advantage. And this is arguably the most critical component of this second pillar.
Okay, how does that work?
When the student finishes building their product, it doesn't get submitted to a professor's inbox. It gets published directly onto the EON global marketplace.
And the scale of this marketplace is just massive. The sources explicitly note that EON already has a built-in network of over 4,400 institutional buyers.
Right, spanning across more than 80 countries.
Which completely shifts the paradigm of what a final project even is.
Yes. The student's product is instantly given access to genuine global business-to-business demand.
I mean, a lot of educational programs talk about teaching students how to find product market fit. But it usually involves like creating a slide deck and pretending to pitch venture capitalists in a classroom.
Exactly, it's pretend.
This completely bypasses the pitch deck phase.
Yeah.
This isn't like setting up a lemonade stand on a quiet street and just hoping someone walks by.
No, it's more like having your prototype instantly injected into the automated procurement software of multinational corporations who are actively looking to buy solutions.
Right. That is the commercial reality EON is attempting to engineer here.
And the stated objective in the release is that graduates do not just leave with a grade. They leave with a live product URL, an actual paying customer from that marketplace, and a verified revenue figure.
I mean, if you are a candidate walking into an interview for an enterprise AI role, and your credential is a literal revenue-generating business you built and deployed,
The credential gap just completely evaporates.
you have undeniable proof of operational capability.
Yeah.
You've got the skills from the AI Fluency courses, and you have the live product from the venture builder.
Right.
But building a product and getting a few initial customers is entirely different from scaling a business. You can't manually handle sales and distribution across 80 countries.
No human could. Any modern digital business needs automated infrastructure to find its market.
Which brings us to the third and probably the most complex pillar of the AI Founder Program.
Right. Pillar 3. It is called Radar V3. And EON describes this as their scale and sourcing engine.
And the numbers attached to Radar V3 are pretty intense. The source material describes it as a synchronized system of 250 autonomous AI sales agents.
Operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And they are targeting massive international markets. We're talking the Gulf Cooperation Council region, West Africa, South and Southeast Asia, and the broader European Union.
Yeah. And to really understand the function of Radar, We have to look at its dual purpose because it's simultaneously solving two entirely different operational problems.
Okay, what's the first purpose?
The first purpose is for the institutional partners, the traditional universities that are actually hosting this program. For them, Radar V3 operates as a fully automated international student recruitment pipeline.
Wait, so these 250 AI agents are basically constantly scraping the internet, identifying prospective students in these target regions, initiating contact, answering their questions, and then funneling them right into the university enrollment system.
Exactly. And the text notes this happens at zero marginal infrastructure cost to the university itself.
Wow, I mean, that solves global enrollment, which is a massive financial pain point for legacy higher education right now.
Absolutely. But then there is the second purpose of Radar, which is strictly pedagogical.
For the students.
Right. For the students who make it to the top tier of the curriculum level 5, AI entrepreneurship learning to operate this massive Radar system is actually a core requirement.
Okay, wait, let's just trace the logic of that loop for a second. The students are being trained to operate the exact same multi-agent AI sales infrastructure that likely recruited them into the program in the first place.
Yes.
That is a wild, almost completely recursive loop of automation. It feels incredibly meta.
It is entirely recursive. But from a training perspective, it addresses the most difficult skill gap in the market. The source text emphasizes that directing multi-step AI tooling at an enterprise scale is currently one of the most sought-after and highly compensated skills in the tech industry.
Because, I mean, anyone can open a browser and prompt a single language model to write an email.
Right. That's basic level 2 stuff.
But managing 250 autonomous agents that are simultaneously executing complex sales workflows, navigating different regional languages, handling objections, and closing deals across international regulatory zones.
That is an entirely different universe of complexity.
Yeah, it really is.
And it is a complexity you simply cannot simulate in a classroom environment. You cannot learn enterprise scale without touching enterprise infrastructure.
So by giving level 5 students the keys to the radar system, EON is providing them with a high-stakes, live-fire environment.
Exactly. The students act as the orchestrators of a global machine, while the university directly benefits from the recruitment output of that exact same machine.
It is a massive architectural achievement if it actually works as described. I mean, we have 100 structured courses, automated AI project managers building software, and a swarm of 250 sales agents scouring the globe.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's bring this back down to earth for a minute and look at the human element.
Okay.
Because theory and autonomous loops are fascinating,
Yep.
but how does a regular human student actually fit this into their weekly life?
Mm.
And who are the real-world institutions actually signing off on this?
Right, the logistics. Well, the program is structured to be intensive, but they built it to run parallel to a student's existing degree or even a professional's full-time job. The sources outline a typical weekly commitment for an AI founder program student, and it requires roughly 10 hours a week.
10 hours a week is a pretty significant commitment. That is the equivalent of a heavy part-time job. How is that time actually divided up?
The breakdown is heavily weighted toward operational action rather than just passive listening. So out of those 10 hours, 4 hours are dedicated to the self-paced AI fluency courses working through those checkpoints.
Okay, so 4 hours of learning.
Right. Then 3 hours are spent in the Venture Builder, actively using Claude Code and VibeFlow to write software and construct the product.
So that's 7 hours.
Yep. Another 2 hours are allocated for market research and iterating the product based on actual user feedback. And the final hour is focused on community interaction and optimizing the product's listing on the global marketplace.
So it's an aggressive schedule.
Yeah.
But I guess if you maintain that 10-hour weekly cadence over a standard 12-month cycle, the math yields roughly 500 hours of documented, assessed, practical AI execution.
Exactly. And that 500 hours is what ultimately generates the public URL, the blockchain credential, and the revenue-generating product.
And crucially, EON AI Ventures is not attempting to launch this ecosystem in a vacuum.
No, not at all.
They aren't just putting up a standalone website and hoping students randomly find it. They are deliberately embedding this entire infrastructure into legacy educational networks through regional flagship partners.
Right, and the sources actually name a few of these flagship partners,
Yeah.
and they are heavyweights in their respective regions.
Like who?
Well, in Europe, EON has partnered with the University for Business and Technology, or UBT.
Okay.
And the text points out that UBT is the only British Accreditation Council accredited institution in the region, and they maintain over 500 Erasmus Plus partnerships.
That's a massive network.
It is. Meanwhile, in the Gulf region, their anchor partner is the National Leadership Institute, which operates under a subsidiary owned by the Kuwait Investment Authority.
Wow. So we are talking about deeply traditional, highly regulated legacy frameworks.
Absolutely. Which naturally raises a pretty major strategic question.
Why would they do it?
Yeah. Why would these deeply entrenched legacy institutions allow a disruptive tech company to embed itself so fundamentally into their core curriculum?
Well, I was actually looking at a quote in the press release from Dan Lajerskar. He's the founder of EON AI Ventures that addresses exactly this.
Oh, what does he say?
He explicitly states, "We are not replacing higher education. EON's strategy is not to tear down the traditional university structure. They are simply building a highly lucrative, technologically advanced extension onto the existing house."
Right.
And they refer to this extension as the proof layer.
You proof layer.
That concept is exactly why universities are adopting this. Legacy institutions are acutely aware of the credential gap. They know their graduates are losing jobs to candidates with operational portfolios.
Right. They see the writing on the wall. But building an automated venture studio, a global B2B marketplace, and a massive AI sales engine, that requires a level of engineering infrastructure that a traditional university simply does not possess and honestly cannot build fast enough.
So EON essentially brings the entire infrastructure layer to the university and plugs it in.
Yes.
But what about the financials? I mean, if a university sends their own students into EON's program, doesn't EON basically steal the university's revenue?
To circumvent that exact fear, EON engineered what they call a dual attribution commercial model.
Yeah.
It is very specifically designed to ensure EON never competes with its own institutional partners.
Okay, let's break down how that dual attribution model actually works in practice.
It works on a split incentive depending on who actually sources the student.
Okay.
So if an institution, let's say UBT, recruits a student through their own existing marketing channels and enrolls them into the AI Founder Program, UBT keeps 80% of the revenue generated.
Oh, wow. 80%?
Yeah. EON only takes a 20% cut for providing all the infrastructure.
That's a great deal for the university.
It is. However, if EON's Radar V3 system, those 250 autonomous agents, goes out and independently recruits a brand new student in Europe that UBT would never have had access to,
Then what?
the revenue for that student is split 50-50.
Okay, so from the university's perspective, it is almost a risk-free proposition. EON is basically telling them, we will not cannibalize the profits from your existing student base, and simultaneously, we will deploy our autonomous infrastructure to find you brand new students globally, and we will share that new profit equally.
Exactly. The university gets to offer the required operational proof layer to their students, and they instantly unlock a massive new revenue stream driven by AI.
It really aligns the incentives of the legacy institution perfectly with the growth of the disruptive tech platform.
It does. And, students can also enroll directly via EON's consumer platform, which is owow.ai, or even through government-funded workforce transformation cohorts. But the institutional partnerships are really the key to their global scale.
So when we step back and view this entire architecture from above, the strategy to close the credential gap becomes very clear.
Yeah, it requires combining three distinct elements.
Right. First, you need Pillar 1, AI Fluency, which produces the granular, verified technical skills secured on a public URL.
Yep. Second, you need Pillar 2, the Venture Builder, which forces the transition from a theoretical capstone to a live, revenue-generating software product on a global B2B marketplace.
And third, you need Pillar 3, Radar V3, which provides the massive autonomous scale required for both university recruitment and hands-on enterprise-level student training.
By locking those three pillars together, EON is attempting to forge an entirely new classification of graduate.
They are producing a candidate who possesses the theoretical foundation of a traditional degree, augmented by undeniable, mathematically auditable proof of operational AI execution.
Exactly. They know the exact physics of how the bicycle works, and they have verified video evidence of themselves riding it seamlessly through the heaviest rush hour traffic.
It definitely solves the immediate problem for the hiring manager. But, if you really analyze the mechanics of the system we just outlined, it raises a much larger question about the trajectory of the modern economy.
It certainly feels like we're looking at the blueprint for something much larger than just an educational program.
Yeah. What is the larger implication here, in your view?
Well, think about the autonomous loop we just walked through. We have an AI system, Radar, that autonomously identifies and recruits a human into an ecosystem.
Right.
That human then utilizes another AI system, Claude Code and Vibeflow, which acts as a technical co-founder to autonomously build a software product.
Okay.
The human then deploys that product back into an automated global digital marketplace where it is purchased by enterprise procurement systems.
When you string the mechanisms together like that, the human almost seems like the least active participant in the entire chain.
Which leaves us with a critical thought to consider. In a 12-month program that successfully automates the role of the technical co-founder, automates the global sales team, and automates the distribution network.
Yeah.
At what point does the human shift from being the active creator of a business to simply acting as the temporary manager of an entirely autonomous economic loop?
Wow.
And if the tools can build, sell, and distribute entirely on their own, what does that actually mean for the fundamental nature of entrepreneurship in the future?
Are we the ones riding the bicycle? Or has the bicycle learned how to ride itself, and we are just holding on to the handlebars? That is a truly profound thought to leave you with. Thank you for joining us as we explore the evolving mechanics of AI capability, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.